To find out how you drop us a line. Address it to the Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, PO Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You got a question or a comment? Perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you get in on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. Also, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, Vaughan Radio, and click subscribe. Also follow us in the video stream on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. Tonight, Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts. Those people who listen to us religiously on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin. So, I must say that Webbo, I leave it there.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleague tonight, the one and only Edric W. Stanley. Let me say a very pleasant good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk tonight. It is certainly a pleasure for me to be here once again. Webbo, I want to take this opportunity to offer condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight, whether they are here in St. Kitts and Nevis and throughout the region or further afield. I believe that the loss of their loved one, friend, colleague often leave a aching pain, and I certainly hope that they can remember their friend, family, colleague with fond memory. I also want to take this opportunity, Webbo, to say tonight to those who are celebrating, whether it's a birthday or wedding anniversary or some accomplishment in their life for the past week since we've been here. I note that our good friend Conrad Rastnaya Libert, I think he celebrated sometime late last week, early this week. I certainly want to wish him happy belated birthday, and I hope he had a wonderful time. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I'm certainly looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Okay, first off, what we got?
Well, Webbo,
well, let me do this first though, because I want to. Last week, Mr. Edric was not here, and normally when he is not here, he make notes and then he wants to put in his input on certain topics, right? If you have that this evening, that's okay. But first, I want to mention something. Last week, we had a discussion and we're talking on different things, and a couple of listeners called in and made some complaints and you could almost say accusation. And I got in on the fray as well, because sometimes you get worried, and Mr. Brand
He did a lot of writing.
He did a lot of writing. So you want to continue, or I could finish?
No,
Okay. Right, he was doing a lot of writing, and I coined it. Let's hope he's doing writing that will get results.
oh, really?
Right? So I deliberately asked him to come back this evening to find out if he did do some writing that got results. Up front though, I can say that we did thought that get results, because by the next day, if you all remember, I had put in a little input with our light in the parking lot, and it was fixed by the next day. Now, as I said, I didn't want to say it because some people don't know, but you'll hear me keep saying sometimes people spite you, and they do, right? And that's a part I won't like to detail either. But our light was there. When they came, I don't think it took 5 minutes. okay, such as what was wrong with it. And these things to me are just unfortunate. Now I'll have a comment to make in terms of, and I'm sure Edric might have something as well, in terms of why it happens. And sometimes it is not, we end up blaming persons in some instances who are not supposed to be blamed in the first instance. But at the end of the day, the buck has to stop somewhere. So, as far as our item was concerned, that was fixed. Mr. Brand, when I was speaking and I said I hope he did right in that get results, he was undercutting me. So when people do that, I normally say to them, okay, go ahead, because I know what is one thing I got is time. So, Mr. Brand, did you do right in that get results?
Yes, Webbo, I believe I did. As you rightly indicated, last week I certainly did quite a bit of writing. The general public would have expressed some concern in some areas that they thought that they needed some redress with. One was the light in Brown Hill area. I'm happy to report that that particular light was fixed. There was a concern in the Montshot Village area, and the good folks there at Nevlec are saying to me that they are having some issues there in that Montshot Village area, because at some time the lights would work and at some other time they won't work. So they are trying to figure out exactly what the situation is. So they did have a look at that situation as well. Up until when I checked this morning, they still have not resolved it totally, but they did have a look in the Montshot Village area. And what they are saying to me is that 1 minute the light would work, and then the next time they won't. So they are trying to remedy that. We also had a call from the Hickman's area for lighting as well, and what I am told is that they need to run some low voltage lines along the back way so that they can have those lights in the back way of the Hickman's Village area. As you said, the light here at Vaughan Radio was fixed, so Brown Hill was fixed, Vaughan Radio was fixed. Montshot Village, they are still trying to ascertain exactly what the true situation there is. They have looked at it. They haven't completed the assessment there yet. And the Hickman's Village area, I am told that they have to run some low voltage lines there to have that situation remedy in that area.
Okay, the one there about the one that sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. I get it. Am I correct that it's a problem that they can't figure it out as yet, so they're still trying to figure it out, and then they'll fix it?
Well, but what I'm gathering, and they did not necessarily, and I'm going to be very careful what I say here, that some of the lights that they are now installing, they seem to be 1 minute they are working and the next minute they are not. So it is not that there isn't power or the mechanism in place, but for some reason the lights that is being installed, they just seem to be giving some problem in terms of 1 minute they are working and the next time they are not working. So they are of the view that it may be an issue itself with some of the lights. So that seems to be an issue and a challenge that they are facing at the moment.
Well, I don't know, because the reason why I press you on it is because I know sometimes people have some wonderful reasons why they don't do things.
Okay.
And sometimes, to tell the truth, you as a customer, I mean, what you want is results.
Yes.
Right? So I know in some instances we may have a little issue. A listener may call and they may say ABC, and then I will say to them, we're aware of it and we're trying to get it sorted out, so that they know that we are genuinely working at it and it's not a bluff. Right? So how you tell people things and how much confidence they have in you can make a difference, right? That's number one. The other thing down at the other place, that the explanation is it needs low voltage line and so on and so forth. I'm almost sure that the person said that there is years. So I'm just wondering if that is you get a commitment that within a certain period of time they might have it done, because saying things like that, right? I've been around a while, right? And sometimes they give you something, what I just call a soft bluff, and that's it.
Well, I did get the commitment that, especially in those two areas, the Montserrat Village and the Hickman's Village area, that they would seek to have those sorted in very short order. I don't necessarily want to put a time on it, but I did get that commitment that they would try and have both of those sorted out in a very short order.
Right, but I got you. I just wanted to, because you see, that is a reality, and you deal with these things all the time. Now, to be fair, I'm pressing you, Mr. Brand, because you are here.
Yes.
Now, most people would know, or should know, that it doesn't really directly fall under your direct purview, but you're part of the team.
Yes.
And so if you can't get one, you get somebody else, because at the end of the day, what the citizens and the customers and everybody want, they want results. Right, Edward?
Quite so, quite so. And of course, you know, they are in the hot seat, and therefore they must deliver. And these little issues, I call them little issues, they're practical issues, and all they need to do is to take a practical approach to these practical issues, and they would be able to get them solved. It shouldn't take any length of time, because we're not as large as the United States. We don't have as many people as the United States. And as a result, these local areas, it takes you 10 minutes to drive from here to maybe Pan Hill. Well, traffic is a little dense now, but at the same time, it doesn't take you any more than, say, 10 minutes to get from Nevlec to Van Radio, or from Nevlec to Brownhill, especially if you go on that nice piece of road that they just put in coming down to the Mondo track. You get into Brownhill in a flash. So the people who are in Brownhill who actually complained, I know the family, the lady who called, and I felt her pain simply because her elderly father is exposed to those things in terms of lack of light security. So it doesn't take a millennium, and it shouldn't take any large amount of resources to fix these little practical issues. And the fundamentals are there with regard to electricity. Well, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I will say this: they shouldn't take that long to get that Montserrat problem solved. It might be a ground problem, a grounding problem, and as a result, the fundamentals with reference to electricity would give them the directive and the direction as to how to get it solved. It might be larger than that. Of course, I am not on the ground to understand the technicality of the job at hand, but I would say it shouldn't take them a long time to go back to the fundamentals of electricity and how it functions to get that problem under control.
You know, and even as we're speaking about this and a lot of other related matters, when you find that the general public may have to complain, and I keep saying that you're not always going to get it right as a people or as leaders or whatever, but you must not just talk, you must show the willingness to serve. Don't just say that, oh, we're here to serve. You must show that. And to be fair, it is not always the politicians' fault. sometimes, to be fair, they don't know. But at the end of the day, the buck stops somewhere. So when you find out, as Mr. Brand did, you must go and get it done. Move
Expeditiously.
right, and the mountains or whatever there is, because everybody knows what goes on. The place is small, and the reasons why people do things or don't do things. I said that it took less than 5 minutes to fix what we had to fix over there.
Fundamentally.
Yes, and they knew about it. Right? And if I were to give the sequence of what happened, why it wasn't fixed, the fella don't stop talking to me. Right? And then, as I said, but those things I don't think should happen. They shouldn't even be here on this program and stuff like that. So I'm just encouraging everybody, right? You got a position, and I think Mr. Stanley said something about these things are what you call little things and practical stuff. So don't treat people like that, talking about, you know what I'm saying? It might seem like a little light to you, but that's why they put them there.
Yeah.
That's why they put you there in the first case, the politician, Mr. Brand, for instance. And that's why Mr. Brand put you as a permanent secretary, you as so and so on, to get the whole thing done and serve the people. So it's not always the politician. And again, to be fair, in front his face and behind his back, Mr. Brand, is not what was directly with him, but he took the fire, and I saw him writing notes, and I did exclaim, let's hope you get writing that get results. I didn't have him scheduled for tonight, but I said, let me bring him and let him say what it is, right? And what I have found also is that I don't know, but I could say in a few instances when certain things were brought to his attention, notwithstanding, he's not like a lot of other people who make a lot of noise. Some people say he's too softy, but he normally gets it done, right?
It's by nature.
Right? So, you didn't get everything sorted out, but let's hope the next time when you come back, whether you have to, they have to. As Edric says, it's a grounding problem, or they have to plant a post or whatever, right? Those are little practical,
the fundamental of electricity is well documented, and like I said, you've got trained people, good people, experienced people in that level.
Yeah, and what happened to your pride when you're doing something? You have to feel good when a problem has been presented to you, and you were able to get it fixed, and the person who brought or had the problem, you have to feel good that they feel good that the problem was solved. Yeah. Unless you know what I'm saying? I remember, when they had a hurricane, one of the hurricanes, and it wasn't a real big one, but some poles and all those kind of things got damaged and so on. The people at Nevlec, they went around, and I didn't care who was in charge. And then I mentioned on the air that I went around and those fellows from Nevlec doing a great job. And I called a couple of names who I saw. And I got in hot water for it.
Oh my God.
They got vexed with me, because I said, well, okay, Stanley was there, and Stanley looked like he had his group and they did a great job. So after that, somebody else get vexed.
Oh boy.
So that is what happens, right? And to bring this topic and so on. But in life, somebody's got to do it.
Absolutely.
So Mr. Brand, you took the heat. And I'm sure the people in Brown Hill who got sorted out, the people in Montchat Village are in 100%
Yes.
yet, I believe they feel a little better, and so on. So, you all don't be afraid to bring your issues forward. Somebody is getting brave and they're calling. Let's see what they want. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good night, Webbo.
Good evening.
Good night. What's your right? The program that I was working with the bass band, right? I was working with the bass band, and I see here do something wrong. I said, pardon us, so it's supposed to be. He said, only I make a mistake. But what's that? It's been me do it. You don't cost me.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right.
See, that's what you get in this job, Edric. You got to deal with everybody, right?
Yeah, but
okay.
I would this have an admonition. You know, who's saying he's your boss. Bosses.
No, the essence of genius is to know what and who to overlook, Mr. Stanley. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening.
Yes.
Good evening.
Mr. Herbert, good evening, and good evening to the panelists there.
Good evening.
Okay, let me sing here. Yeah, I must say thanks. The light is fixed by the other day, the Thursday and Wednesday, and it's brighter than ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very thankful, and it's good to speak out. And this is talk that gets results.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I'm very happy that the light is fixed here. Okay?
Okay, thank you. You ready for a light moment?
Pardon?
You're ready for a light moment?
Yes, anytime. Let's go.
Okay. Did they use the bucket truck to fix it?
But the bucket truck they use,
Oh, okay. So the bucket truck fixed now.
but the bucket truck was working. That's what I told you.
Oh, I got you.
I saw the bucket truck over by the Ivor Walter School. So I was talking to the two people that was in here.
Uh-huh.
But they said that pole wasn't on the list.
Oh, okay.
Nobody tell them nothing.
Okay.
So, by the morning, the Wednesday, they come and they fix it.
Okay. I got
And
you.
it's brighter than ever.
Okay. And you feel good. You're happy.
I feel good.
Okay.
I'm feeling good.
Okay. I don't think you're feeling better than me.
And I must thank you for your input too. And Mr. Brown, I thank you very much.
My pleasure, my dear.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have
Okay,
a good.
you all have a good evening.
Yes. Okay. See how fast the bucket truck get fixed. Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Brand, you want to?
Yes, I want to move on to not along the same line. The Wednesday evening, a good lady from Barnes got called and spoke about water department did some repair work in the Barnesgate area, and they left the area not asphalted as yet. I think that I'm paraphrasing, and what I didn't get a chance to address it because at the time I was basically with the Honorable Mark Brantley, and he would have gotten to a point where he was wrapping up his program, so I didn't really get a chance to address it. I just wanted to say, Webbo, that oftentimes when we do repairs to these, especially these large lines, we normally would leave the area unfinished for a bit of time, a week or two, to make sure that the problem is actually fixed. You don't necessarily want to fix the problem and asphalt the area within a matter of a day or two, because sometimes the problem is not necessarily fixed as good as we would hope that it is. So you leave it for a few days, a week or two, and you make sure that it is done and done properly. So I just wanted to say to that lady there in the Barnesgate area, we are aware of it, and I think based on when that repairs was done, I believe that the time for it to now be repaired has passed, and I want to assure that in very short order the team would come and have that repair done. But like I said, oftentimes when the water department does these major repairs to these large lines, they normally would try to leave them for some time to make sure that they are fixed properly. Sometimes we prefer to have the vehicle, roll over them and make sure that, they can bear the bear the pressure and so on before we actually go and do it over properly. So I just wanted to say to that good lady there in Bangor, we are aware of it and it will be taken care of very shortly.
All right. Well, I have to say the COVID task force is about to be dismantled based on what I gathered, and I hope that they're not attempting to dismantle it too quickly before we take care of or have the COVID-19 that has plagued the world, but more so, well, not more so, but has plagued the world. But what we did a marvelous job with regard to managing it to the extent where we had very few cases as compared to the rest of the world. Now, I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Laws. She has a very unique voice, and I was at a particular place and I heard the voice and I said, Dr. Laws, and she said, yeah. So I said, you have a very distinct voice, and therefore I just have to say congratulations for the great job you and your team did in terms of keeping us safe. There are few deaths, few COVID-19 cases still around, but at the same time, the magnitude that plagued the rest of the world, and even within our own region here, is no comparison, and therefore we have to give them a big shout out, big thank you. Congratulations to Dr. Wilkinson and his team, and Dr. Laws, who was part of that team. Well,
Did you tell her who you were?
I did mention
That you are Edric Stanley.
right. Well,
Okay.
of course.
Just checking. Just checking.
well, I did say
No, walk with me. I don't want to know all what you told her.
Yeah.
Okay, so you.
anyhow. There is a big job done at Old Road in St. Kitts regarding that stone barrel.
Let me just take this, Mr. Stanley, and then we can get. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Okay, good evening. Good evening to the panelists.
Good evening.
I would like to tell the Honorable, thank him for looking into it. This is the lady from Hickman.
Yes.
And please to keep on them. Make sure
Okay.
they get it done for me. Please. Thank you very much.
You are welcome there.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay. You see that, Mr. Brand? That's as I know about people. You know, it may seem simple to others. You know, but these things may seem simple, but they're very important to them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if you're in a particular position, and as Edric said, these are simple, practical things. Just go and take care of it. Sometimes other people are in the way, and that's why you're the minister. And in colloquial terms, I'm sure people just tell you you're the vote for, right? They don't tell you that. so you know, so that make sure, because these are things that make people feel comfortable.
Yes.
Not necessarily sometimes with the big highfalutin
Yes,
talk
yes,
and
yes.
that gets no results and so. But these little things that make people feel comfortable and safe.
Yes.
Mr. Stanley, go ahead.
Yes, this big project that I call it big because based on what I understood, I would have gone to Old Road over the many years, and when I get to this particular area, I drive a little faster because of the potential for rocks coming down from that hilly area into the bay. So I passed there a few months ago and I recognized a massive engineering, marvelous engineering marvel piece of engineering going on with reference to stone wall, which quite large boulders have been placed at the front of the further in front, so as to give more space to the pedestrians and the traffic. They in fact abandoned the old road
Yes.
that was there, and as a result I can't tell you at this juncture as to if it has been completed, but based on that I see a massive piece of engineering, a marvel piece of engineering work done. And therefore it begs the question, Mr. Brand, you are here, and I do not know what has happened at Fort Charles, but the area there was beginning to deteriorate based on the ocean wave action. And what has been done with regard to that area?
Well, let me
We probably need some boulders.
Let me tell you what we have done, Mr. Stanley, with the Fort Charles. We have had a study done by a company out of a coastal engineer out of Jamaica, Smith Warner, to look at that Fort Charles issue. I think they completed the report during 2020, mid or late 2020. And they would have basically provided us with a kind of roadmap as to how we can go about not only securing what's left of Fort Charles really, but also how we can create some expansion as it relates to where those buildings were constructed along the coast. Some of them are actually in the sea. We kind of halted on what we were doing because the onset of COVID in 2020 and 2021, because what we were looking at that time was to try and see where we could have find some grant funding to undertake that project. We have since received a number of suggestions as to what we can do with that Fort Charles area. I have a document that suggests that we can even create a breakwater that create a kind of marina into Gallows Bay. A lot of ideas. But the long and the short of it, we basically would have had to put a pause on it because of the onset of COVID. And the focus now basically is to try and see where we could access some grant funding to undertake that project. We have the report. We know that there are some artifacts in the area that the Historical and Conservation Society and other interested persons were looking at how we could secure those, whether we should remove them or leave them or put them in a protected area. But there have been some work that has been happening in the background on that project. But like I said, there is a number of ideas that is floating around as to what must be the end product of whatever we do at the Fort Charles. What is important to me and certainly of the administration, the people of Bath Village would have a significant input in whatever we do, because as you know, that is the part of the whole community of Bath, and we want to make sure that whatever we do there, the people of Bath Village is integrally involved with that, because at the end of it, they would be the ultimate beneficiary of it.
All right, well, the thing is that based on what I saw at Old Road, the employment of some of the heavy equipment we have here, and we got quite a number of large boulders.
Yes.
All over Nevis, right up in Stony Grove. I don't know how they were able to determine that that's a stony area and it gave it such a name. but that area there has some real large boulders, and it doesn't take a lot of money from a government standpoint. No, I'm saying it doesn't take a lot of money to engage a trucker if he sees a boulder somewhere, get some equipment, lift it onto a lowboy, and carry them and dump them right there. And I think that will stem the tide of erosion that is occurring. I'm just looking at from what is happening at Hall Road and bring it over to Nevis so that we could stem the erosion that is taking place. I could remember as a boy, I used to travel the Bay Road to go to Brownhill Bay from Charlestown, and I do remember there's a rock on which I stood some time in the past, many years in the past, and that rock is now
Way in the
about
sea. Absolutely.
30 feet in the sea, which tells you the amount of erosion that has occurred on that coastal area, which meant that Nevis was 50 square miles. Nevis was 50 square miles at the time when they did the measurement, but now they got it at 36, 32, somewhere there. Webbo.
So if you have a piece of land and have some big boulders in it, you think that somebody can just go and take it up and put it on a lowboy and then just carry it down there, right?
The government has the authority to take whatever it needs.
Right. So but I'm just trying to get you straight, because I don't want you to, in the end, say you didn't say it. So I just want to.
Well, let me give you the legal aspect of it. The government has the right to public exigency.
No.
And therefore, if there is something that the government feels it is in the public interest, real public interest, not a bluff, to demonstrate that it's in the public interest, they can take action, compensate the people for it, for whatever they have taken, and ultimately bring about a coordinated effort and keep things within the realm of legalese. Webbo.
So I could speak now?
Now we can speak.
Okay. So in the statement that you made and in the example that I was given, so if you have some land with a lot of boulders in it, you're suggesting that somebody with a lowboy could go there, pick it up once you're compensated by somebody, and then they can carry it down to the bay.
Well, Webbo, let me say this. We know that you just can't go and take somebody's thing, all right?
So the answer is, work with me. So the answer is yes?
Well, the answer has to be no. They
answer is
just
no.
can't go and take people things without getting permission.
No, but then you just want to do like my friend.
No.
The answer is no. But work with me. Based on what I ask you, right? The answer is yes. Meaning that you get compensated, etc., etc., etc. Not correct?
True.
But you just work with me. But you just wanted to tell me the answer is no. You agree with that?
Well, you have to put things in proper context. All right? My thing is, I am not agreeing with where you're trying to lead me down a rat hole and leave me there. I'm saying to you, there are protocols that are in place, but sometimes for the absence or for the value of time, we may not dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and we might say things off the top of our head, but truly when you begin to understand the ramifications of your statement, you can back up. You got the right to back up, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and to be in a safe zone.
Mr. Brand?
Well, I think that Mr. Stanley is, I think, if I'm reading Mr. Stanley correctly, I think it's basically trying to say to us that we have some, quote unquote, perhaps I'm going to use a word here, latitude to do certain things, but at the same time, while the government may have the latitude to do certain things, the law also provides for the government to ensure that the citizens are properly compensated for once the government chose to go down a particular path. And we have had some very unfortunate incidents here where governments would have taken things from people and have not paid for them. Even this government are still wrestling with some of these issues. And I think that from time to time it leaves a bad taste in people's psyche that the government, while the government have the authority to acquire or compulsory acquire persons' property or stuff that belongs to people, there is also provided for the government to make good the persons whom they would have taken things from. So I hear what you have said, Mr. Stanley, and I think that while we recognize that there is an issue, and you spoke about the old road Bay project, you also said that fixing the four-child issue may not cost a lot of money. The old road project is a significant undertaking. A significant amount of funds have been expended on that project. That has been a major issue for the island of St. Kitts for many years. Oftentimes when you have high seas and hurricane, the island is cut off from one side to the next. So the government would have then taken a decision to remedy the situation. Has been a project that has been ongoing for some time, but I think when it's completed, then I think that it would be a marvel to behold, and the island and the safety and all of that. But taking people things necessarily, I have to tread very, very carefully, because like I said, even today we still have many cases where governments would have taken, for example, people's land and have not make right what they ought to, and it's creating some problems and some headache, and we really don't want to go down that road.
Well, listen, the government knows what it is capable legally to do, and knows what is forbidden.
Yeah.
But for the want of, or for the value of time, we would say things, but then we didn't dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and therefore we have to back up and do house.
Backing up and crossing the I's and crossing the T, or dotting the I's and crossing the T's, though, Mr. Stanley. Is it the same as saying that you never said it?
No.
Okay, just checking.
I wouldn't deny you, because the words are spoken, and once they're spoken, they cannot be taken back.
And then I might just play the tape.
And they are recorded.
This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. We'll be back after these.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builder's Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the CA Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results with the Honorable Spencer Brand and Edric W. Stanley. What else we got?
Well, last week I recognized that one of the topics was the solid waste. And I'm saying that based on what occurred, the material is there and we've got a place to put it. Environmentalists might come down on our backs. At the same time, what is the great advantage? To use it for the bridge, or we allow it to pile up and then we have no place more than to continue that build up of solid waste. Whatever material is there can be used in the fulfillment of that bridge, the bridge project. So based on what I understood on the program last week, there is a company that came, took and left and went to St. Kitts. At the same time, our landfill is still growing in leaps and bounds. The amount of cars coming in, the amount of cars wind up there, we have to find some method of recapturing them, whether we're going to put them in the bridge or we're going to use a metal compactor and sell them to maybe the auto companies or steel companies, let them put them back into the burner and melt that steel and bring it back to the market. At the same time, the number of cars that would wind up on the dump or that solid waste within a short period of time, within a very short period of time, we're going to run out of land space, or they're going to build and continue to build a mound at the solid waste. Webbo.
Mr. Stanley, the reality is that that solid waste site would have passed its sell-by date long time ago. I have had sight of a report done by a consultant out of, I think it was Trinidad, on the same matter, and the recommendation certainly has been to relocate the landfill to a different site and use different method, different technology and so on, as it relates to the management of that particular solid waste site. We basically are generating, Mr. Stanley, a lot more waste than we did years gone by. We are now utilizing a lot more bulky stuff. We have seen just, I think, 2 weeks ago, I think Minister Evelyn had a white goods cleanup in Gingerland, and you see the number of, so a lot more waste is being generated and a lot more waste is being disposed of. And you are correct, you spoke about the concept of the bridge, and that almost sounds like
it's a place and it would take
that sounds like something that I would have sketched out on a napkin and given to someone, where we would have do something like what we did at the Deepwater Port. You put these steel and you dump all of this stuff inside. Right, and you dump all of these white goods and you create a island, so to speak, between St. Kitts and Nevis and shorten the length of the bridge. You are thinking about my concept, but
and it's a place, like I said, you're killing two birds with one stone.
It's a place that would an option that would definitely clean up St. Kitts and Nevis, because it would be able to create this fill with all of this material, and then you can build on top of that. So it's a concept that I feel if and when there is a move towards constructing this bridge, I personally don't think that we need to have a suspended bridge between the two islands. I think we can break it by creating that midpoint and dispose of all of those waste that we have around, and clean up both landfills on St. Kitts and on Nevis, and put it right between you.
Well, I have the old study that was done some 25, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the numbers on the old study was 425 million EC. But I did a costing on this new bridge, and it is 410 million US. So without seeing the first costing that was done years ago, I did a costing, and the numbers are, you tweak them a little, and it would come a little over 410 million US.
Figure sound very high.
Well, like I said, based on the material that would be used in terms of 2-inch rebars embedded in concrete. Anyway, that is just preliminary. Webbo, I went and saw the movie that the Honorable Mark Brantley was able to get MSR Media here. You got a call? Oh, it sounded like. And I was marveled in terms of what I saw, and it's a good production. I had many episodes of laughter during the exposure of the film, and I even saw a little role where I might have been able to fit in had I not had my misfortune. Anyway, they mention Nevis many times.
Yes.
And it is a tremendous amount of exposure that we got from just this one film so far. And we have to give kudos to the Honorable Mark Brantley for having beaten everybody to the punch and to have lowered the filmmakers to Nevis. And I saw several of our local people who actually played, well, in the crowd scenes. Several of our local people were featured in those crowd scenes, but a few were distinctively photographed, filmed, to show whom they were. Some you could see strategically and tactically they were attempting to, obscure certain people. At the same time, some came out front and center. I don't want to mention any names, but at the same time, they are And it was nice to have heard that on the next production, they might have a film director coming directly out of Nevis, based on what the promoter or the CEO mentioned. So the exposure, we are hoping that it would be a fruit with regard to the exposure and people who would see what Nevis is really like, to come and live with us, buy property, and to, of course, help us diversify our economy. The diversification of our economy is paramount, based on what some of the people on the other side are saying. We must diversify the economy, but the Honourable Mark Brantley has taken a giant step forward regarding to lowering those people here, and based on what the CEO is saying, is just the beginning. Webbo.
Webbo, I agree with Mr. Stanley that this was, in my mind, a diversification, so to speak, of what any government would want to see in their country. But for me, I sat and I marveled at the premiere, the first showing of this movie that was made right here on the island of Nevis. For me, Webbo, the biggest winner in my mind was the island of Nevis. I think it was able to showcase our scenery. I think it was able to showcase our people, our warmth, our hospitality. It was able to showcase, in my mind, that Nevis is a place where you can be rejuvenated. You know, you can refocus your life and get back a new perspective on life. And for me, I think that those were the important things out of this movie. Yes, we would have seen a number of our ordinary folk who would have been a part of some of the scenes. It would have been able to create some employment here for some of our people at a time when it was at the height of our COVID pandemic. It also, or what was also important for me to Webbo, was the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of the kind of expertise in this particular field, where our people were exposed to the film industry, you know, the whole mechanism that all that you need to do to get a movie put together. And I thought that the transfer of knowledge and so on right here on the ground was for me very important. I believe it's the start of good things here in Nevis and on St. Kitts, and I believe that once again that our people have displayed that once an opportunity is presented, that they can perform, they can make sure that good things can happen. And I just hope that this would be the first of many. But like I said, for me, the big winner out of this was Nevis. I tried to count how many times Nevis was mentioned. I actually stopped count, because I think throughout the movie it was mentioned quite a number of times, and I think that once this is broadcast on all of those platforms, then people begin to ask, well, where is Nevis? How do I get there? How can I get there? You know. And I feel, like I said, Webbo, it's the start of good things. I believe that kudos to the Honourable Premier. I know when he brought this to the cabinet, when he brought this idea to the cabinet, we basically fully supported it, because we felt that it was something that could be good for the island of Nevis, and I believe it has certainly turned out to be so.
Another big part of it was the showcasing of agriculture and the type of soil.
Yes.
And it was really hilarious to see someone who may never have dirty her hands was
In the soil.
shown a large potato that was grown on Nevis, and sure enough, we have good soil. So, based on what was transpired or uttered in the film, Nevis has been featured in many aspects, not only the tranquility, the sea and sun, but also the sand, the greenery, scenery.
The food, the drink, everything.
It was quite a delight to see. Webbo. Okay. We pause. Let's take another look at where we are with this thing between Russia and China and the West. In my view, Biden has been able to push back hard enough for Putin to rethink exactly what his game plan is. Based on what occurred so far, it is stated that they're beginning to move their troops and send them back to the barracks. But nobody can attempt to give Putin a heads up. Putin's plan is to, in fact, rebuild Mother Russia, the Union of Soviets, of Socialist Republics, on the premise that he could just move into a sovereign country and take it over. In the last World War, the enemy, which was Germany, had swept with devastating power over the greater part of Western Europe. Britain was fighting back with desperate courage and had to retreat to Dunkirk. At the same time, Russia, or Putin, sitting in Moscow, is attempting to do the same thing that Germany did with reference to taking over another country, with the expectation that no one would say anything, because he feels for some reason he's got the arms. But NATO was formed to ensure that what Germany did in the last World War doesn't happen again.
Absolutely.
And therefore, Putin has to rethink the high price that he would have to pay for the invasion of this sovereign country. And as a result, he has now decided to rethink and allow diplomacy to work, give diplomacy a chance to work. Because if he doesn't allow it to work, and he has to confront the forces of NATO, Third World War would be imminent. So, based on the utterances we are hearing, it is very likely that he is going to back off and give diplomacy a chance. Now, Lavrov, his foreign minister, has hinted that diplomacy still has some way to go with regard to their talking, their negotiating, and ultimately their decision-making process. However, we still cannot trust Putin simply because there is a larger thing that he is seeing, and his objective is to ensure that he brings back to the fore, or the formation of the old Soviet Union, Union of Soviets, of Socialist Republics. But we have a new world order currently, and every country should respect the new world order. You just cannot go in and take over another country without paying a price. And therefore, people who live in Russia, the Soviet Union, Moscow, they have to rethink their strategy and ensure and understand that it cannot happen, it must not happen. They rolled into, Germany had rolled into what it was, Czechoslovakia, with tanks and armory in the last World War. It shouldn't happen again. From the time Putin decided to roll out his forces, borrowing on three sides, he should have been stopped. He should have been stopped, but at the same time, there is a certain amount of patience and tolerance that the West has undergone. And based on that, he is now poised, so the report says, that they are due to go back to barracks. Webbo.
Stanley, what I find is happening is a multi-pronged approach by the US and the West. What I've realized is that some serious hardware have been moved into the area from NATO and the US. That's one. And of course, there is still the lines of communication is basically still open between Russia, the US and NATO. But also, what I find is that the US have signaled very clearly that serious sanctions would be forthcoming on what I would call the close allies, so to speak, of Putin. And I believe that these three approaches by the US and NATO have, in my mind, have somewhat caused the Russian leader to pause for a moment. I would hope that you mentioned and you spoke about a third world war. The kind of weaponry and the kind of technology that is available now. If mankind were to engage in a third world war, I really don't know what would be left of us. And I would hope that calmer heads and cooler heads would prevail to make sure that that doesn't happen. But it's still a tense situation, Mr. Stanley, of course. I think that Russia was always worried and upset that NATO continued to expand that close to their doorsteps. And Russia have now basically somewhat tried to pivot more towards China, and you see the two leaders continue to have these photo ops and conversations and so on and so forth. But I think the three lines, the three-pronged approach, Russia, US, NATO, still having those conversations. Like I said, the signal that some serious sanctions will be placed on Putin and his close allies. And also the US and NATO have moved into the area some serious hardware. And I think that it shows the seriousness of the US and NATO in this matter. And I believe that that may have given some pause to Russia in this situation. But I think I am of the view that this matter would be resolved. I am really hopeful that we will not see an all-out full-fledged war along that peninsula, because I believe it can escalate very easily into a much serious situation.
Well, based on what I understood, the German Chancellor has not agreed to cut off the Russian natural gas pipeline, or the natural gas that would be coming through that pipeline.
It's beneficial to them.
Which is beneficial to them. I mean, of course,
absolutely.
Human beings are, of course, in need for warmth during cold times, and that natural gas is a source or a commodity that gives them the kind of heat to keep all these countries in the region that would benefit from the pipeline, especially Germany, to keep them warm during the winter time. That, of course, if they decide not to allow Russian natural gas to come through those pipelines, they will suffer a serious economic backlash.
It will bite, it will pinch.
But at the same time, that is not the bigger picture that Putin sees. Putin wants to bring back the old Soviet Union in Brezhnev in his time.
Those days are long gone.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Those days are long gone, Mr. Stanley.
But Putin was attempting to help Donald Trump with the expectation that had Trump been in the presidency, it would have been a cakewalk for him for bridging the sovereignty of this country. Serious discussions between Trump and Putin had occurred regarding not only Belarus but also the other country that he has already partially invaded. But
that's the last word, Edric. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. We now join Leadership Matters.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the